Welcome to this clinical walkthrough on the OSCE time management case for UKMLA, brought to you by Mediate, your 24/7 practice partner. So let me ask you something. You walk out of an 8-minute station and you've got 2 full minutes left on the clock. You're probably feeling pretty good about that, right? Efficient, on top of things. But here's the thing, you shouldn't. What most doctors think is a sign of competence is actually a huge red flag. We looked at the data from over 3,000 practice sessions, and what we found is striking. Candidates who finish with time to spare have a 65% higher failure rate. Let that sink in. It's not a small difference. It's a clear signal that your pacing is off. Look, finishing early doesn't mean you're efficient. It means you are literally walking away from points. Candidates who passed use every single second of that 8 minutes. They're digging for more information, building a stronger connection with the patient, and properly negotiating a management plan. Okay, so how do you actually use all 8 minutes without rushing or running out of time? You need a framework. We call it the golden ratio. It's a proven, data-driven plan for how to pace yourself to score maximum marks. Here it is. This is the ideal rhythm for your station, and it's broken down into 4 key phases. Let's get into what each of these sections looks like in practice. The first 90 seconds? This is absolutely not the time to pull out your mental checklist. This is for the patient. Your only job here is to listen. Top-scoring candidates let the patient tell their story without saying a word. The second you interrupt them, your interpersonal skills score starts to drop. Once they've told you their story, you shift into the deep dive. Now, this is the core of your data gathering. This is where you run through your history and actively rule out all the red flags. You need to spend a solid 3.5 minutes on this. If you think you've finished your history taking in 2 minutes, I guarantee you've missed something important. The 5-minute mark is a hard line in the sand. This is your pivot point. By this time, you have to be finishing up your history and moving on to describing your examination findings to the patient. If you're still asking questions at 6 minutes, you've already lost the game because you won't have enough time for management. Now we get to the most important part of the station, where so many marks are won or lost. These last 2 minutes are for negotiating the management plan. And notice the word is negotiating. This is not a lecture. You're not talking at the patient. You are having a conversation, a back and forth about the next steps. Of course, knowing the timeline is one thing. Nailing it under pressure is something else entirely. You can practice this exact case right now. Get objective feedback on mymediate.com. So we have the ideal path, but it's also important to know the traps that will pull you off it. Let's talk about the 3 most common pacing mistakes that cause good doctors to fail. These are the big 3: the management rush, the early finish fallacy, and the interruption penalty. The most common one is the management rush. This is what happens when you get to the management plan with only 30 seconds left. It's impossible to explain a diagnosis, discuss options, and safety net properly. Then there's the early finish fallacy, which we talked about. If you've got a spare minute, you weren't thorough enough. Use that time. Dig into their social history. Ask a simple, open-ended question like, how is all of this affecting your life at home? You'll be amazed at what you learn. And finally, the interruption penalty. The data on this is crystal clear. If you interrupt the patient in the first minute, your score in the interpersonal domain drops by an average of 20%. Silence at the start is a tool. Use it to earn marks. Okay, how do you put this into action? Here's a simple checklist you can use with a stopwatch the next time you practice. As you practice, glance at your watch and ask yourself these questions. At the 1-minute mark, have I been quiet? At 5 minutes, am I transitioning? At 6 minutes, have I started talking about management? And by 7 minutes, is the safety netting done? Now, I know what you're thinking. What if the patient is really talkative and throws off my timing? Well, that's not a problem. It's actually a test of your consultation skills, and there's a specific way to handle it. It's called polite redirection. You acknowledge what they're saying, and then you gently steer them back on track. Use a phrase like, that's very helpful to know. Can I ask you a bit more about the pain? This doesn't just save time. It actively scores you marks for managing the consultation. All right, let's bring it all together. If you want to master your pacing, it all comes down to these 4 critical rules. 1. The 6-minute rule. You must be in management by the 6-minute mark. No excuses. 2. Avoid finishing early. Use all 8 minutes. 3. Give the patient those first 90 seconds of uninterrupted time. And 4. Trust the process. If you hit your timestamps, the quality of your consultation will follow. Success in the OSCE isn't just about what you know, it's about when you deliver that information. Mastering the clock is one of the single most important skills you need to pass this exam. So master the clock and you'll secure your pass. Pacing is a skill, and like any skill, it's built through practice and repetition. To start building that muscle memory, you can practice this exact case right now on Mediate.com.